Ladies and gentlemen, it's Spoilerin time. That means all that time we spend on our other show, Cordkillers, figuring out how to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, pays off because we've been watching some great stuff and we're going to talk about it now. We'll finish up with episode 1 of season 5 of Justified, our current library show. We're also going to talk about the second episode of this season's Sherlock. I'm Tom Merritt, and joining me to discuss these fine shows, Mr. Brian Brushwood. How are you?
Mr. Brian Brushwood is my name, but you could call me Dr. Moneybags because I'm coming to defeat you from behind in the movie
So you
draft.
better get this party started?
Yes. I don't know.
Oh, man.
Is this an early 2000s Pink reference?
Hey, some of us were very, very ill until about 20 minutes ago.
Hey, no judgment here. Frankly, I'm still in first place, and I assumed that I would be, but I'm in first place by a little bit more than I thought I would be. Rogue One did top $502 million after this week, so it's still bringing in some bucks. But Brian is hard charging. Hidden Figures now in wide release, up to $60 million. We also have like Anarchy in the release notes. Like nothing has been coming out because everything got moved. So Amityville The Awakening has to be replaced. The next release this weekend hopefully will stick with The Founder and XXX The Return of Xander Cage, which are both your movies, Brian. Like your bulk buying binge is now starting to pay off.
Yeah, dude. Playing the Costco Tom strategy seems to be paying off at this point. Sing is the #1 pick of the entire movie draft. 15 game dollars, bringing in so far $240 million. And I'm looking at this list of what's coming out next. I don't see any other kids' movies. I think Sing's got maybe another $100 million.
You think Lego Batman won't be?
I mean, Lego Batman isn't just a kids movie, but it will bring in the kids.
Well, but that's also Lego Batman is quite a ways off, right?
February 10th.
February.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a month away almost. Yeah, I know. I think it's got more gas in the tank. And then again, I think that the way this plays out is you are still ahead, and then Logan comes out, and then I think
That
it's
pushes you over the top.
during
Makes
Logan
perfect sense to
that I
me.
think pushed me over. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Meanwhile,
that is probably what's going to happen. Although Christy Cates does have the comedian, Mikey has Rings in the Lego Batman movie, and Justin has the Great Wall. All the rest of the movies are Brian's.
And yet, amazingly, Chat Realm, we still have only one Chat Realm winner, even though there's so many more of them. I don't understand how there's never a tie. I always think it's going to be like a 20-person tie, but right now, Mr. and Mrs. Mooncat.
So we have a lot of ties in the top 10. Tied on 2, tied on 7,
Just not
tied
at the
on 9.
top. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
right on number 1.
Right. Yeah,
All
right
right.
now.
Well, let's move on to talking about episode 2, season 4 of Sherlock. And I liked this so much more than the first one. I wasn't too down on the first one, but I was kind of bored by it. And this one kept my interest all the way through. It was a good mystery, a good villain. It kept me guessing in a good way, not an annoying, like too many mysteries way. And even if there was a little bit of convenient coincidence in the execution of the solution, it was not so much that it outweighed my ability to suspend my disbelief about Sherlock's powers and luck enough to be upset by it.
Yeah, there were probably 5 stabs at really good surprises in this performance, and 4 out of those 5 landed dead solid perfect for me. Like, it was great. Like, not the least of which is it turning out to be the landlady driving the Aston Martin.
I know. I was watching it with Eileen and our friend Eric, and it surprised all of us when she showed up.
Well, this is advice Teller gave me 20 plus years ago. He said, put 2 and 2 in front of me, convince me it's 5, then reveal the truth 4, and you have delight and surprise. And the great part about it is you think like, why is she driving? And she goes, do you realize what real estate I own? Like 221 Baker Street.
Central London property.
Yeah, right?
And I keep telling you, I am not your housekeeper.
Exactly. It's just like, and then you realize, oh, 2 plus 2 has been in front of me the whole thing time long, and now you've revealed the truth 4. Yeah, so it was great. It was, I loved the twist of, I loved it for what it served to have Mary be around in his head and him really conflicted. And to have Watson playing his own game and his own arguments, it was a that could have been really cheesy, but it just wasn't at all. I loved seeing it, and I think the episode clearly indicated that we're wrapped up with that conceit, but I could ongoing, deal with that over and over and over again. However, the star of the show, this thing to me, was watching them fully embrace Sherlock Holmes being high as a kite the entire time long, like high as a kite and a fully functional, like what autistic spectrum? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm great. Let me put on the hat. Everyone loves me. Ha-cha-cha.
I'm updating the blog. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
and it added to the fact that they present to you the killer at the beginning, right? It's a very classic, move to say, we're going to tell you who the killer is. And the fun is going to be how and will he be able to deduce it? And even sow a little doubt that maybe what you saw at the beginning wasn't the full truth. Maybe maybe there's something else going on. And then leading you through that path where it's like, Sherlock is high as a kite. And anybody who's ever been around anyone, maybe not even with substance abuse, but anyone who's just a little unreliable, and you're like, they're not always unreliable. So is it right, or is it the drugs talking with Sherlock this time? It's so just the right amount of doubt in there to keep you guessing.
Yeah. So the okay. So here's my question to you. I just thought of a fun game that we will have to place bets, and we'll either be right or wrong. Everybody can play along, even at home listening. The one thing that failed to hit the mark for me. Okay. Let me just ask. The actress that we see in the beginning, we see the daughter take the drugs, and get told the truth. We see the daughter talk and spend the evening with Sherlock, which, by the way, the fact that he was mapping out the words FU was amazing. They just show the KYOU. And then we see a different girl show up, and then we find out who that girl was that was in his head, or not, or actually that she was physically there.
Right.
But we find out who she is. Which actresses were when?
Yeah, I want to go back and determine that, because the way it should be is the actress we see come into the morgue should be the same one we saw at the beginning.
Which I suspect, because we're playing a game, I'm going to place a bet. I think that's exactly what it is. I think they put the truth right in front of us. I think they showed us the actual daughter actress, and then they tricked us by having who we think is daughter actress show up again, but is actually other person, and then later surprise us by having not that chick again.
Yeah. And there was a very interesting thing where they never showed her on the monitors when Mycroft is monitoring them. So they start to turn your head in the direction of, is she even there at all? And then it turns out somehow she was there. They just didn't see her on the monitors a lot, but it wasn't her. So, yeah, I want to believe that it was the same actress in the room at the beginning and in the morgue at the end, but a different actress the rest of the time, and I just didn't notice.
That would be the right way to pull the magic trick, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let me put it this way. If that's not how it went, I'm slightly disappointed that they, but it seems like,
because I mean, really what you need to do is cast two people who look very similar, which these two did, make her up in the first scene to look a lot like the second actress, but make her up in the morgue scene to look less like the second actress.
Okay, so and we're about to have to talk to the chick, which was the only miss, the only whiff, the only one of the 5 blows that didn't land with me. But before we do that, I just want to shower more and more praise on how awesomely hideous the villain's teeth were, and how he was socially savvy and just rolled with everything. And I don't care how ridiculously unbelievable it is that he sets up the bug inside the box and 3 weeks before because he knows it's gonna. Don't care. He's a superhero. That's his superpower.
Exactly.
And it was so much fun.
And they didn't go to that well too often for me. Like that was they sort of talked about his ability to predict things ahead of time, but they were inconsequential things like knowing that the landlady would bring him to the place.
Right.
That isn't that surprising. Like, yeah, he could probably pull that off. So having the one that's beyond the pale, like, really, could he do that? Fine with. Totally, I'm right there with you. Like, yep, that's a superpower. I don't need to know how he did it. He did it. And he doesn't do it all the time, so I'm not starting to disbelieve. That said, I also loved more the villain telling everyone, being honest up to a point, non-incriminatingly obvious that like, oh no, you're right, I am a serial killer, but you can't catch me, more than the other plot they pushed, which was I am so powerful that I'm untouchable. I've seen it before. That was less impactful than just the plain like, you know what, I'm going to do an advertisement where I announce that I'm a serial killer, just to rub it into your face that you're right, but you can't catch me.
Oh, but they clearly indicated that was a scheduled marketing event, like Sherlock Holmes publicly called him a serial killer, and then they worked it out for Sherlock Holmes to show up at that moment and all that stuff. Here's a fun fact that is just hitting me. I think this is the Sherlock Holmes stories have always been told from the perspective of James Watson, Dr. Watson. But Sherlock Holmes has always been the protagonist. I think in this version, in this one particular episode, he is not the protagonist. Because this is John Watson's story. It's his arc, and it's his decision, and it's what he is going through to process the unthinkable. And
Watson is usually doing something to aid Sherlock in achieving things. And in this case, the plot is that Sherlock is doing something in order to aid Watson.
Right. Which is a fun twist, and I liked, even that moment at the end where he confesses that he's like, hey, I cheated on you. I mean, if not in actual deeds, in my mind and in my heart, and and he's talking to someone not in the room, and I love the fact that Sherlock doesn't comment on, acts like there's nothing weird about that at all, because he's figured out like, yeah, no, he's probably having a hallucination, projection, working out that detail, blah blah blah, this stuff. I don't know. I loved the disingenuity of the hug. We don't see Sherlock hug someone, but he rolls his eyes and hugs the serial killer, but does it so that he can steal, lift the phone. But then to see that same gesture used in a way that we do not ever see, that kind of expression of tenderness, but it's sincere, and it's like I got goosebumps thinking about it just now. It was precious and wonderful.
Now let's finish with the finish, which is the revelation of the third Holmes sibling, heretofore referred to as the third Holmes brother, which it turns out was a sister, and was the woman who fooled Sherlock into thinking that she was the daughter of the serial killer, when in fact she's his sister. That sums it up. I mean, I'm not bothered by it in principle. It obviously is setting me up for a story that I'm waiting to be told in the third episode, which is fine. Sure,
but here's the problem with it, is that birthday moment when his phone makes that soft moan sound, and it's clear they're talking about the dangerous what's her name?
Radler.
Yeah, the one Study in Pink, is that what that
Study in Scarlet.
Yeah, there you go. So it's clear like there's dangerous, evil Sherlock Holmes lady out there somewhere, and is that not who this chick is?
No, Radler is his girlfriend from Study in Scarlet, and not not
not
the same,
pretending-
not the third Holmes sibling.
Yeah. Okay. So then
So these are two different people.
in that case, they probably. In that case, that little brief moment of, oh, you're still having a connection with that mysterious woman from before, that served no purpose, and it only led to confuse me as to, or maybe it was meant to be a red herring. I don't know. It just left me.
I didn't confuse them because I wanted Irene Adler. I kept saying Radler. It's Adler. I wanted Irene Adler to show back up. I loved her appearance in the previous episode. And so she is a distinct person to me and very, very different than the woman that you see at the end. Whereas it sounds like you just didn't remember exactly who Irene Adler was, and so that was confusing.
Correct. I had an ambiguous reference to that was placed there to remind me that, oh, that's right, there was that, wild card chick that I need to watch out for. So as a result, when and they, they also clearly set up that I guess his sister is a master of disguise, but Irene might as well have been a master of disguise, and so good enough to even fool the great Sherlock Holmes or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what any of that was, but they built up enough credit with me that I'm gonna keep riding.
Yeah, no, it makes a big difference to know that Irene Adler is Sherlock's love interest and not in any way supposed to be related to, I think it's Eros, his sister that shows up at the end.
And that's also tough too, because I didn't read many of the original stories, and so I'm sure there's.
Well, I'm just getting
howling.
this from this series. Irene is very clearly not her, if you remember her.
Right, but was her sister in? I know Mycroft was in the original stories, but
I
don't know how much of this is them deviating.
I think there was a
from
third
canon,
brother,
and yeah. So and more importantly, I don't like being pulled into that headspace of wondering, oh, was this a thing? Are they doing a clever twist-a-roo on this other thing? And I very much, the ending of it, I very much felt like, I guess if I read the books, I'd understand whatever's happening now a little more.
Yeah, you may have just been psyching yourself out there, because if you don't connect Irene Adler girlfriend with, oh, this is your sister, there really isn't too much going on there, other than teasing ahead that we might see Irene Adler show up in the third episode as well.
Yeah. So
I guess Laura Pulver will be, I just looked up who played her. Laura Pulver will be in the next episode also.
Regardless, a lot of fun. Oh, here, he's not around anymore. Our guest, Justin Robert Young. You think he's going to like this one or hate it?
I think he will, because it's a straight ahead story. But like you pointed out on Cordkillers, one of the things he said he doesn't like is when they're teasing a different mystery. And I'm not sure if this is going to bother him in that way, because it's not a different mystery. It's just a change in the same mystery. So I'm curious. I'm curious if it's the changing of the mystery throughout that bothers him, or the fact that it's like, hey, we've got one thing to solve here. And I would guess that the girlfriend, or not the girlfriend stuff, but the sister stuff probably won't please him too much. I don't know.
The metaphor of, if you want to hide a pebble, find a beach, was perfect. And I loved it. And it made, of course, this, I loved the imagery of everyone, having an amnesiac substance put into them as he confessed. But I didn't really believe that he wanted to get it off his chest or whatever, like
you just kind of had to accept that.
It
seemed like a lot of trouble to go to for Dexter here to finally tell someone.
Exactly. But man, there's lots to really, really love about this episode.
Agreed. Let's get to Justified. Before we get to the season premiere of season 5, we did ask for thoughts on why folks thought Justified season 4 was the best season, and BioCow wrote in and said, well, I think it was almost the worst season. Almost put it second to last, with season 1 being the worst since it had no story arc. Although it was the worst in my opinion, it did have some great high points, some of the greatest scenes of the entire series. There is the great twist that Drew was under their nose the whole time. As was pointed out, the scene with Patton Oswalt is one of the top 5 scenes of the entire show. I mean, Drew Baca? Come on, how great is that? This season also develops the Theotonin thread, advances Boyd and Ava's relationship, and then goes on to rip them apart by having Ava arrested. All of this could have been done in a handful of episodes, and I feel they padded them out into a whole season with the Snake Church and the Colton Carrier character, and it just didn't work out well for them. But with all that said, even this worst season of Justified was still pretty darn good, and it will just get better in the next 2 seasons. I promise you. BioCow has promised us that, Brian.
I do not doubt it at all. I liked, which segues perfectly going into the fact that we are beginning a brand new story. Looks like we're going to see a whole lot more of Florida. We are.
We got more crows. A murder of them, to be exact. But yeah.
Yeah.
That is the name of the episode. So.
That's correct. But no, it's great. I love that we've got this. We got a lot of players that are all playing away games now. We got Crowders going up to Detroit. And yep. we got Raylan's going down to Florida. And I'm really two seemingly very unrelated arcs being set up. It will be really interesting to see where we go from here. There's really not too much to talk about this episode outside of I like the idea. It was cute. I don't know, it was cute to see Dewey Crow be too dumb to realize he was getting a big payout. It was cute to see him wasting all his money in exactly how you would picture Dewey Crow doing it. And I think it's also cute to see responsible, not idiots in the Crow family.
Yeah.
And to be introduced like, hey, man, just because he's hilarious and a foil doesn't mean that he comes from a whole family of clowns, you know?
Yeah. Well, and we've got 2 storylines converging on Harlan. One is the Crows realizing that their business lineup isn't going to work in Florida anymore, and maybe they should head back to Harlan. And then you've got Boyd Crowder realizing his Canadian supply line just got cut off. He's going to have to find a new way to get things into Harlan. And it doesn't seem like a perfect match, but it certainly seems like 2 organizations that are headed for some sort of meeting at some point in Kentucky.
Yeah, and against my initial resistance, I am starting to buy that that Boyd's deeply in love with Ava. Like I'm believing it now, and I wish I could have believed it earlier. I wish they had known that this chemistry would be so good down the road that they could have written it better in the beginning to set that up. Like he's always been pining for her because you know I believe that you know he hurts and is willing to kill and die for her. Up to an extent, I guess, is what we find out with the begging.
It was a little bit disconcerting to me that we were like in beautiful Miami and gritty Detroit, and it felt just a little bit like the showrunners were saying, we're kind of tired of showing the hills of Eastern Kentucky. Let's just change it up. But in the end, it felt like we're not going to just spend all of our time there, and there was a reason to go to those locations. So.
It was very the visual palette is very distracting. They do a lot of digital color correction on this, and I don't normally, normally the spell gets cast and I get swooped in, but that same thing that you see in Game of Thrones, where it's like, the color palette announces in the first 3 seconds what set piece you're at. That's what they're doing on this, which
dude, those Florida scenes look really good on my TV.
Oh, really?
This verges on bragging, I know, but that was the one part of this where I'm like, wow, Justified has never looked so good. I just calmed me down. I want to drink.
Yeah. You know, what's funny is I did not notice anything about the Florida scenes. I only noticed that suddenly somebody snuck up and turned down the contrast on all the Detroit scenes. I'm like, and Fight Club and regular TV and Fight Club,
I mean, inside of abandoned buildings like that, the contrast does
okay,
crush out.
Right. But I'm certainly in. I don't smell anything that worries me going forward. Isn't that weird? I'm walking into is this a trick? Is this a trap? This is going to be a good one.
Doors and corners. Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like I don't have a sense of excitement about where this is going, but that's not to say I'm worried about it. I've got a table set before me, and I'm interested to see what the first course is going to bring.
Hey, if we could take just a second to revisit, because it's been a while since we digested our meal on Westworld, and somebody got me chatting with them on Twitter about it. And I think so. We'll say Westworld spoilers from here.
Yeah, bring down the justified Spoilerin segment. There you go. Okay. Well, I'll do a W so they know it's Westworld.
OMG Chad was asking, is Westworld a good show? And I think my answer is not yet. It's not. No, I mean, season 1 was not a good season, but the show I'm beginning to suspect might be very, very good by the end, which we've seen before, because after digesting and thinking it through, it's The Leftovers. Like, The Leftovers ended season 2 so strong, crazy strong, loved the world, the acting, believed, and they made massive, massive changes in it, and it was a very, very different story. And while the first season of The Leftovers was not good, finishing the second season was much more powerful for having gone through the first season. And I think that's where I'm at now with Westworld, where it's
interesting.
It's not
a
a
really
good show
interesting comparison yet. Because I remember you being very positive about the first season of Leftovers, and not to say you were saying it was perfect, but you were pointing out things. You're like, this is good about it. This is good about it. I think they're going in a good direction. And I was you for Westworld for season 1 of Leftovers. I was like, you know what? I'll stick through it because there are a couple of things that interest me, but I did not like most of season 1 of The Leftovers. And I'm totally in agreement with you that having gone through season 1 made season 2 very powerful. I'm on your side. I'm your Leftovers side for Westworld. I thought Westworld season 1 was pretty good. Wasn't perfect. There are weaknesses, but I enjoyed it. So is it a good? If I had to answer that question, is it a good show? I'd say yes, but with a lot of caveats. Like, do you need to have a strong story from the beginning? Do you like just digging into world building over story for a while? If you can answer yes to those, then you'll enjoy this season. If not, then you might want to hold out to see how season 2 plays out.
Yeah, I guess the big transformation of having that discussion, because for all the guff, Twitter, yes, it's a clown place. It's a hilarious place, but some good stuff comes out of Twitter interactions, and I'm firmly in camp. I realized that I believe Westworld is going to become a very good show.
Interesting.
I don't believe we're there yet.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening, watching, participating, and supporting us on Patreon. We'll spoil you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.